I'm going to tell you about something that's growing in your backyard right now. Probably something you've been trying to kill with weed killer, that contains more medicinal power than most of what's in your medicine cabinet. Roots. Not the roots you buy at health food stores. I'm talking about roots from common plants that grow wild in yards, along roadsides, and in empty lots across North America. Plants that most people consider weeds. Plants that traditional healers have used for thousands of years. About a year ago, I was talking to an herbalist who specializes in wild foraging. She told me something that changed my entire perspective on yard maintenance. She said that the average American lawn contains at least 5 to 10 different medicinal plants that people pay good money for at health food stores, but they spray them with herbicides without realizing what they're destroying. She gave me examples. Dandelion roots that support liver function, burdock roots that purify blood, plantain roots that heal wounds, all growing wild, all free, all being systematically eliminated by people who think they're just removing weeds. Over the next several months, I learned to identify wild medicinal roots. I started digging them from my own yard, and I discovered something remarkable. When you know what to look for and how to prepare these roots properly, you have access to a free pharmacy that's literally growing under your feet. Number 4 on this list is a root that probably grows in your yard right now. Studies show it's as effective as some antibiotics for certain infections, but most people spray it with Roundup without realizing they're killing powerful medicine. Number 7 is a root that indigenous peoples across North America used as their primary immune booster. Modern research has validated that it significantly reduces the duration and severity of colds and flu. It grows wild across most of the United States. And number 10. It's a root that pharmaceutical companies have tried to synthesize because it's so effective for inflammation and pain. But the whole root works better than the isolated compounds. And it grows so aggressively that most people consider it an invasive pest. Before we get into the 10 roots, how to identify them safely, when and how to harvest them, and the research backing their medicinal uses, I need to be absolutely clear about something. This is educational information. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Wild foraging requires proper identification skills because misidentifying plants can be dangerous or even fatal. You must be 100% certain of identification before harvesting anything. When in doubt, don't harvest. Also, never harvest from areas that might have been sprayed with pesticides or herbicides, near roads where there's exhaust contamination, or on property you don't have permission to access. But if you want to learn about 10 roots that likely grow in your area, that have been used medicinally for centuries, and that modern research has validated, this video will teach you what to look for and how to use them safely. Hit subscribe because this information could give you access to free medicine that's literally growing in your backyard right now. Let's get into the 10 roots, the identification features, the medicinal uses, and the science that backs this ancient knowledge. Root number 1, dandelion root, Taraxacum. The first root is something that every single person watching this video has seen, probably has growing in their yard right now, and probably considers a weed that needs to be eliminated. Dandelion root, that yellow-flowered plant that takes over lawns every spring. The research on dandelion root is actually quite impressive. A study published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine found that dandelion extract has significant diuretic effects, increasing urination, frequency, and volume. This supports its traditional use for fluid retention and kidney health. Research on liver function found that dandelion root contains compounds that support liver detoxification pathways. Animal studies showed that dandelion extract protected liver cells from damage and improved liver enzyme levels. A fascinating study on cancer cells found that dandelion root extract induced apoptosis in certain cancer cell lines, including melanoma, leukemia, and pancreatic cancer cells, while leaving healthy cells largely unaffected. This doesn't mean dandelion cures cancer, but it suggests interesting compounds worth further research. Studies on digestion found that dandelion root is a bitter that stimulates digestive enzyme secretion and bioproduction, supporting fat digestion and overall digestive function. Dandelion root also contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Here's how to identify dandelion safely. The leaves grow in a basal rosette, meaning they all emerge from a central point at ground level. The leaves are deeply toothed, which is where the name dandelion comes from. It's a corruption of the French dandelion, meaning lion's tooth. The flowers are distinctive bright yellow with many thin petals, growing on hollow stems that exude white milky sap when broken. After flowering, dandelions produce the familiar white puffball seed heads. The root is a long taproot, typically 6 to 18 inches deep, light tan on the outside and white inside. For harvesting, the best time is fall after the plant has stored energy for winter, or early spring before flowering. You need a dandelion digger or a long slim trowel because you want to get the entire root. Dig deep around the plant, then pry up to extract the whole root. The root should be light colored and firm. Wash thoroughly to remove all soil. For medicinal use, you can use dandelion root, fresh or dried. Too dry, slice the root thinly and spread on screens in a warm, dry place for about a week, or use a dehydrator at low temperature. To make dandelion root tea, I use about 2 tablespoons of chopped root per cup of water. Simmer for 15 to 20 minutes, then strain. The taste is bitter and earthy. For a coffee substitute, roast dried dandelion root in a 350 degrees Fahrenheit oven until dark brown, about 45 minutes, then grind and brew like coffee. This is less bitter than tea made from unroasted root. I drink dandelion root tea several times per week, primarily for liver support and digestive benefits. I notice that it helps with bloating after rich meals and supports regular digestion. The effective dose based on traditional use is about 3 to 5 grams of dried root daily, which equals roughly 2 to 3 cups of tea. Safety is generally excellent. The main caution is that dandelion can cause allergic reactions in people allergic to plants in the daisy family, including ragweed, chrysanthemums, and marigolds. Because it has diuretic effects, dandelion might interact with diuretic medications or lithium. People on these medications should discuss use with their doctor. Make absolutely certain you're harvesting from areas that haven't been sprayed with chemicals. Many lawns are regularly treated with herbicides, specifically targeting dandelions. Never harvest from treated lawns. I've been harvesting and using dandelion root for about 5 years. It's one of the most reliable wild medicines I've found. The fact that it grows so abundantly and that most people are trying to eliminate it makes it an ideal starting point for wild foraging. Multiple herbalists I know consider dandelion root essential medicine. One herbalist told me she harvests several pounds of roots every fall to dry for winter use. Dandelion represents a perfect example of a plant that's dismissed as a weed, but that contains genuine medicinal properties validated by modern research. It's free, abundant, and grows in almost every yard in North America. Root number 2. Burdock root, Arctium lapa. Number 2 is a plant that most people have encountered without knowing it. If you've ever gotten burrs stuck to your clothes or your dog's fur, you've met burdock. Burdock root. From a plant that grows wild across North America in disturbed areas, along roadsides, and sometimes in yards. The research on burdock root is extensive, particularly in traditional medicine systems. A study published in the Journal of Biomedical Science found that burdock root contains compounds with anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and antioxidant properties. Research on blood purification, burdock's traditional use, found that it contains compounds that support kidney and liver function, helping the body eliminate toxins. While blood purification isn't a scientific term, the research supports burdock's role in supporting detoxification organs. Studies on skin conditions found that burdock root improved acne, eczema, and psoriasis symptoms. The mechanism likely involves both internal detoxification support and direct anti-inflammatory effects on skin. A study on diabetes found that burdock root improved blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity in animal models. The inulin content provides prebiotic benefits, while the other compounds support metabolic health. Burdock root is also used extensively in traditional Chinese medicine and is common in Japanese cuisine, where it's called goba. Identification is critical with burdock because it resembles some toxic plants before flowering. First year, burdock has large leaves, often 12 to 18 inches long, that are rough on top and fuzzy underneath. The leaves are roughly heart-shaped with wavy edges. Second-year burdock sends up tall flowering stalks, often 3 to 6 feet high, with purple thistle-like flowers that become the famous burrs, those brown sticky seed pods covered in tiny hooks. The root is what we're after. First-year roots are best. They're large, fleshy taproots that can grow 2 to 3 feet deep. They're brown on the outside and white to cream-colored inside. Second-year roots become woody and less medicinal as the plant puts energy into flowering and seed production. Harvesting burdock root is work. You need a shovel because these roots go deep. The best time is fall of the first year or very early spring of the second year before the flower stalk emerges. Dig a wide, deep hole around the plant, then carefully excavate the root. The root breaks easily, so work carefully to extract it whole. Clean thoroughly. Burdock roots have lots of small rootlets that trap soil. For preparation, you can use fresh or dried burdock root. To dry, slice thinly and dry on screens or in a dehydrator. For tea, I use about 1 ounce of sliced root per quart of water. Simmer for 20 to 30 minutes. The taste is earthy and slightly sweet. Burdock root can also be cooked and eaten as a vegetable. It's crunchy with a mild, slightly sweet flavor. I make burdock root decoction every few weeks, especially when I feel like I need detoxification support after periods of less healthy eating. I notice improved digestion and clearer skin. The traditional dose is 2 to 4 grams of dried root daily, or 2 to 3 cups of tea. Safety is generally good. The main caution is ensuring correct identification. Burdock resembles rhubarb, which has toxic leaves, and some other plants before flowering. Burdock can cause allergic reactions in people sensitive to plants in the daisy family. It might lower blood sugar, so people on diabetes medications should monitor levels. I've been harvesting burdock for about 4 years. It's abundant where I live, growing along edges of fields and roadsides, though I never harvest from roadsides due to contamination concerns. An herbalist I know harvests burdock roots every fall, dries them, and uses them throughout the year for teas and tinctures. She said burdock is one of her most used roots for supporting skin health and detoxification. Burdock represents traditional medicine that's been used across multiple cultures. The fact that it grows wild and abundantly makes it accessible free medicine for those willing to do the work of harvesting. Root number 3. Plantain root. Plantago. Major number 3 is a plant so common that it grows in almost every lawn, park, and sidewalk crack across North America. Yet most people have no idea it's medicinal. Plantain root, and I'm talking about the common lawnweed, not the banana-like fruit. Research on plantain has focused mainly on the leaves, but traditional herbalism uses the roots as well. Studies found that plantain contains aucuban, a compound with anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Research on wound healing found that plantain promotes tissue regeneration and reduces inflammation. While most studies used leaf preparations, the roots contain similar compounds. A study on respiratory health found that plantain helps soothe irritated mucous membranes and acts as a mild expectorant. Traditional use includes plantain root for coughs and bronchitis. Plantain root has been used traditionally for kidney and bladder health, likely due to its diuretic and antimicrobial properties. Identification is straightforward. Plantain has oval-shaped leaves with distinctive parallel veins, running lengthwise. The leaves grow in a basal rosette close to the ground. There are 2 common species, broadleaf plantain, Plantago major, with wide oval leaves, and narrowleaf plantain, Plantago lanceolata, with long narrow leaves. Both are medicinal, though broadleaf is more commonly used. In summer, plantain sends up thin flower stalks with small greenish flowers that become tiny seed pods. The root system is fibrous rather than a single taproot. The roots are thin, white to tan, and spreading. Harvesting plantain root is easy because the plants are small. Use a trowel to dig under the plant and lift the entire root system. Fall or early spring are best times. The challenge with plantain is that it's so common in lawns that it's likely been exposed to chemicals. Only harvest from areas you know haven't been treated. Wash roots thoroughly. They're thin, so they dry quickly. Spread on screens in a dry place for a few days. For medicinal use, I make a decoction by simmering about half an ounce of dried roots in 2 cups of water for 15 minutes. The taste is mild and slightly bitter. Plantain root can also be tinctured in alcohol for longer-term storage. I use plantain primarily for minor kidney and urinary support. The diuretic effect is gentle but noticeable. Traditional doses are 2 to 3 grams of dried root daily. Safety is excellent. Plantain has been used as food and medicine for thousands of years, with minimal side effects reported. The main concern is harvesting from contaminated areas. Plantain grows everywhere, including in polluted urban areas and treated lawns. I've harvested plantain for about 3 years. It's so abundant that I can gather what I need from wild areas on my property. One herbalist told me she considers plantain a cure-all plant, useful for many minor ailments. The leaves are her primary use, but she keeps dried roots on hand as well. Plantain represents urban wild medicine. It thrives in disturbed areas and can be found even in cities. For people wanting to start wild foraging, plantain is ideal because it's everywhere, easy to identify, and safe. Root number 4, Yellow Dock root rumix, crispus number 4, is a plant that grows along roadsides, in fields, and often in yards, that has a long history of use for skin conditions and digestion. Yellow dock root, from a tall plant with narrow leaves and rusty brown seed heads. Research found that yellow dock root contains anthraquinones, compounds with laxative effects similar to cascara and senna. This supports its traditional use for constipation. Studies showed that yellow dock contains tannins with astringent and anti-inflammatory properties, useful for digestive issues like mild diarrhea. Research on skin conditions found that yellow dock root taken internally helped with chronic skin issues, including eczema and psoriasis. The mechanism likely involves supporting liver function and elimination. Yellow dock is also high in iron, making it traditionally used for anemia, though the iron content varies by growing conditions. Identification. Yellow dock has long, narrow leaves, with wavy or curled edges. Crispus means curled. The leaves can grow quite large, up to 12 inches long. In summer, yellow dock sends up tall flower stalks, often 3 to 5 feet high. The flowers are small and greenish, becoming distinctive rusty brown seed pods that persist through winter. The root is a thick taproot, yellow on the inside, hence yellow dock, often 8 to 12 inches long. Harvesting requires a shovel or a digging fork. Fall is the best time, after the plant has died back. Dig around the plant and pry up to extract the root. The root is dense and breaks easily. Wash thoroughly and slice into rounds or strips. The inside should be bright yellow. Dry on screens or in a dehydrator. Properly dried yellow dock root stays yellow inside. For medicinal use, simmer 1 to 2 teaspoons of dried root in a cup of water for 15 minutes. The taste is bitter and astringent. Yellow dock is often used in small amounts in combination with other herbs rather than as a single herb tea. I use yellow dock occasionally for mild constipation or when I feel like I need digestive support. The effect is gentle but reliable. Traditional dose is 2 to 4 grams of dried root daily. Larger amounts have stronger laxative effects. Safety. Yellow dock contains oxalates, so people with kidney stones or kidney disease should avoid it. Don't use during pregnancy. The laxative effects mean it can interact with medications by speeding their passage through the digestive system. I've harvested yellow dock for about 2 years. It grows abundantly in disturbed areas. An herbalist told me she uses yellow dock in many formulas for skin conditions, finding it particularly helpful for chronic issues that haven't responded to other treatments. Yellow dock represents traditional alterative herbs, plants that alter the body's state, particularly supporting elimination and skin health. Root number 5. Wild ginger root, Asarum canades. Number 5 is a woodland plant with heart-shaped leaves and a root that smells remarkably like true ginger but is not related. Wild ginger root, found in moist, shaded woodlands across eastern North America. Important: wild ginger is not a substitute for culinary ginger, Zingibera officinal. They're completely unrelated plants. Wild ginger contains Aristolochic acid, which is toxic in large amounts. It's used medicinally in small amounts, externally, or in very small internal doses, not as a food. Traditional use by indigenous peoples included wild ginger root for digestive issues, respiratory problems, and as a circulatory stimulant. Research is limited on wild ginger compared to other plants because of the Aristolochic acid concern. Studies confirmed the presence of aromatic compounds that give the ginger-like smell. Indigenous peoples used wild ginger root in small amounts as a flavoring and for colds, upset stomach, and female reproductive issues. Modern herbalists are cautious with wild ginger due to toxicity concerns. It's not widely used compared to safer alternatives. Identification: wild ginger has distinctive heart-shaped leaves, usually just 2 leaves per plant. The leaves are dark green, fuzzy, and arise from the root on separate stems. In spring, a small dark purple flower grows at ground level between the leaf stems. The flower is easily missed. The root is horizontal, creeping just under the soil surface. It's segmented, about pencil thickness, and smells strongly of ginger when scratched or broken. If you're foraging wild ginger, harvest small amounts sustainably. It's slow growing. Take only a small section of root, leaving most of the plant intact. Because of toxicity concerns, I don't recommend internal use without professional guidance from an experienced herbalist. Traditional external use included poultices for sore muscles. I've identified wild ginger in my local woods, but don't harvest it due to the toxicity concerns and the fact that safer alternatives exist for most uses. An herbalist told me she occasionally uses very small amounts of wild ginger in formulas but prefers other aromatic digestive herbs without toxicity concerns. Wild ginger represents a plant where traditional knowledge must be weighed against modern safety understanding. Just because something was used traditionally doesn't mean it's the best option today. Root number 6. Valerian root valeriana. Number 6 is a plant that grows wild in damp areas and is famous for its sleep-inducing properties. Valerian root, used for centuries as a sedative and anxiety reducer. Research on valerian is extensive. A meta-analysis of 16 studies found that valerian improved sleep quality, though effects were modest and took several weeks of consistent use to develop. Studies on anxiety found that valerian reduced anxiety symptoms in some participants, though results varied between studies. Research on the mechanism found that valerian contains compounds that interact with GABA receptors in the brain, similar to how benzodiazepine drugs work, but much more gently. Identification. Valerian has compound leaves with 7 to 10 pairs of leaflets. The plant grows 3 to 5 feet tall. In summer, valerian produces clusters of small pink or white flowers with a sweet smell. The root is the opposite. It smells distinctly unpleasant, often described as smelling like dirty socks or cheese. This smell intensifies when dried. The root system consists of a short rhizome with many thin rootlets. Harvesting is best in fall after flowering. Dig up the entire root system. Wash thoroughly. The smell when washing fresh valerian root is strong. Dry in a well-ventilated area, the smell remains strong in dried root. For sleep support, take valerian root about an hour before bed. I use capsules of dried powdered root because the tea tastes and smells unpleasant. The traditional dose is 2 to 3 grams of dried root before bed. Effects are not immediate like a drug. Valerian works best with consistent use over weeks. Safety is generally good. The main caution is that valerian can cause morning drowsiness in some people. Don't drive or operate machinery until you know how you respond. Some people find valerian stimulating rather than sedating. Individual responses vary. I've used valerian occasionally for sleep support. I find it helps with falling asleep but prefer chamomile because valerian's smell is off-putting. An herbalist told me that valerian is overrated compared to other sleep herbs and that many people don't find it particularly effective. Valerian represents a plant where modern research has partially validated traditional use but also shown limitations. Root, 7 ECHINACEA. Root, ECHINACEA purpurea angustifoli. Number 7 is probably the most famous immune-boosting herb in modern herbalism, and it grows wild across much of North America. Echinacea root. From the purple coneflower plant, research on echinacea is extensive. A meta-analysis found that echinacea reduced the duration and severity of common colds when taken at the first sign of symptoms. Studies on immune function found that echinacea increases white blood cell activity and enhances immune response. The active compounds include alkylamides that create a tingling sensation in the mouth and polysaccharides that stimulate immune cells. 3 species are commonly used: Echinacea purpurea, purple coneflower, E. angustifolia, narrowleaf coneflower, and E. pallida, pale coneflower. All have medicinal properties. Identification: Echinacea has distinctive purple or pink daisy-like flowers with spiky orange centers. The petals often droop downward. Leaves are lance-shaped, rough-textured, and often have toothed edges. Plants grow 2 to 4 feet tall and bloom mid to late summer. The root is a thick taproot, often branched, dark brown outside and lighter inside. For harvesting, plants should be at least 3 to 4 years old. Fall is the best time after flowering completes. Dig carefully to extract the entire root system. Echinacea roots can be 8 to 12 inches deep. Wash thoroughly and chop into pieces. The root should feel dense and substantial. Dry on screens or in dehydrator. Properly dried echinacea should still have some aromatic quality. Fresh echinacea root is more potent than dried. Fresh root creates a strong tingling sensation when chewed. For medicinal use, I take echinacea at the very first sign of a cold, scratchy throat, runny nose, fatigue. I prefer a tincture made from fresh root because it's more potent and convenient. The dose is typically 30 to 60 drops every 2 to 3 hours at onset of illness. Tea can be made from dried root. Simmer 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup for 15 minutes. Echinacea works best when taken immediately at symptom onset and continued frequently for the first day or two. Traditional dose is 3 to 5 grams of dried root daily during acute illness. Safety is generally good. The main caution is that people with autoimmune conditions should consult their doctor because echinacea stimulates immune activity. Allergic reactions are possible, particularly in people sensitive to plants in the daisy family. I've been using echinacea for about 6 years. I keep tincture on hand and take it at the first sign of any cold symptoms. Multiple herbalists I know consider echinacea essential medicine. One told me it's the most reliable immune support herb she uses, but timing is critical. It must be started immediately. Echinacea represents modern herbal medicine where traditional use has been extensively studied and largely validated by research. Root number 8. Solomon's seal, Root Polygonatum biflorum. Number 8 is a woodland plant with distinctive arching stems and small hanging flowers. Traditionally used for musculoskeletal issues. Solomon's seal root, found in moist, shaded woods across much of North America. Traditional use by indigenous peoples, and in Appalachian folk medicine included Solomon's seal for joint pain, tendon and ligament injuries, and inflammation. Modern research on Solomon's seal is limited compared to other herbs. The plant contains polysaccharides with potential anti-inflammatory effects. Herbalists use Solomon's seal particularly for connective tissue issues, tendons, ligaments, joints, where it's valued for supporting tissue repair and reducing inflammation. Identification: Solomon's seal has distinctive arching stems growing 1 to 3 feet long. Oval leaves alternate along the stem. In spring, small white or greenish bell-shaped flowers hang in pairs beneath the stems. In fall, the plant produces blue blackberries. The root is a thick, knobby rhizome, whitish when fresh, with circular scars where previous year's stems attached. These scars supposedly resemble King Solomon's seal, giving the plant its name. Harvesting requires careful digging. Fall after the plant dies back is best. Locate the rhizome and carefully excavate. Solomon's seal rhizomes can be several inches long. Harvest sustainably, take only part of the rhizome, and replant the rest. Wash thoroughly. The fresh rhizome is mucilaginous, slimy when cut. For preparation, Solomon's seal can be used fresh or dried. Fresh is traditionally preferred. I make a decoction by simmering about an ounce of sliced rhizome in a quart of water for 30 minutes. The tea is slightly mucilaginous. Solomon's seal can also be tinctured in alcohol. Traditional dose is 3 to 5 grams of root daily for musculoskeletal support. Safety: Solomon's seal is generally safe, but the berries are toxic and should never be eaten. Some people experience mild digestive upset from the mucilaginous properties. I've used Solomon's seal for minor joint discomfort after hiking or physical activity. I find it helpful, though effects are subtle. An herbalist who works with athletes told me she recommends Solomon's seal for recovery from overuse injuries, particularly tendon strains. Solomon's seal represents traditional medicine where scientific research is limited, but clinical experience among herbalists supports continued use. Root number 9. Marshmallow root Althea officinellus. Number 9 is a plant that gives its name to the puffy confection, but that's rarely used for candy anymore, replaced by gelatin and sugar. Marshmallow root, traditionally used for soothing irritated mucous membranes throughout the body. Research found that marshmallow root contains mucilage, a gel-like substance that coats and soothes irritated tissues. Studies on coughs found that marshmallow root preparations reduced cough frequency and irritation. Research on digestive issues found that marshmallow root helped with gastritis, reflux, and inflammatory bowel conditions by providing a protective coating. The high mucilage content makes marshmallow useful for any condition involving irritated mucous membranes. Identification: marshmallow has soft velvety leaves, roughly triangular with toothed edges. The plant grows 3 to 5 feet tall. Flowers are pale, pink or white, similar to hibiscus flowers. Marshmallow is in the mallow family. The root is thick and fleshy, white to cream-colored, with fibrous texture. Marshmallow grows in moist areas and can be cultivated in gardens. Wild marshmallow is less common in North America than Europe. If foraging, harvest roots from plants at least 2 years old. Fall is best. Dig carefully to extract the thick taproot. Marshmallow roots can be quite large on older plants. Wash thoroughly. When you cut the root, it releases mucilage. This is the medicinal component. For preparation, marshmallow root is best prepared as a cold infusion to preserve maximum mucilage. Pour room temperature water over chopped root and let steep overnight. The resulting liquid will be thick and slimy. This is correct. Strain and drink. For tea, I use about 1 ounce of root per quart of water for cold infusion. Marshmallow root can also be simmered, but cold infusion extracts more mucilage. Traditional dose is 2 to 6 grams of dried root daily. Safety is excellent. Marshmallow is very gentle and suitable for children and sensitive individuals. The only caution is that the mucilage might interfere with absorption of medications. Take medications at least an hour before or after marshmallow. I use marshmallow root for sore throats and digestive irritation. The coating effect is immediately soothing. An herbalist told me marshmallow is her go-to for any inflammation of mucous membranes, from mouth sores to bladder irritation. Marshmallow represents truly gentle medicine, suitable for almost everyone. Root number 10, Poke root Phytolacca americana. Number 10 is a plant I need to be very careful recommending because it's potentially toxic, but it's been used traditionally and deserves mention with strong safety warnings. Poke root, from pokeweed, a plant that grows wild across the eastern United States. Critical warning: poke root is toxic. All parts of pokeweed contain toxins, with roots being most toxic. It should only be used externally or in extremely small amounts internally, under professional guidance. Many modern herbalists avoid poke entirely because safer alternatives exist. Traditional use by indigenous peoples and in folk medicine included very small amounts of poke root for lymphatic congestion, swollen lymph nodes, and chronic infections. Modern herbalists who use poke at all use it primarily in topical preparations for swollen lymph glands or in extremely small doses in formulas, not as a simple herb. Research is limited because of toxicity concerns. Studies confirmed the presence of toxic lectins and saponins. Identification: pokeweed is easy to identify. It grows 4 to 10 feet tall with smooth red stems. Leaves are large, oval, and alternate along the stem. In summer, pokeweed produces hanging clusters of small white flowers that become purple-black berries. The berries and the distinctive magenta juice are iconic. Pokeweed berries were historically used as dye. The root is large, thick, and can grow several feet long. Because of toxicity, I don't recommend harvesting poke root unless you're an experienced herbalist working with professional guidance. If you do harvest poke, wear gloves. The root is toxic to handle. Only the very youngest spring shoots of pokeweed poke salad are edible, and only after multiple boilings to remove toxins. This is traditional Appalachian food but requires knowledge. For external use, poke root is sometimes used in oils or salves for swollen lymph glands, applied topically. I do not personally use poke root because the risks outweigh benefits when safer alternatives exist. An herbalist told me she used to use poke but stopped because the toxicity risk isn't worth it when other lymphatic herbs work well without danger. Poke represents plants where traditional use must be weighed against modern safety, understanding, and availability of alternatives. My hope is that this video inspires you to look at your yard and local wild areas differently, that you start seeing plants as potential allies rather than weeds to eliminate, that you learn to identify a few medicinal plants confidently and begin building relationship with the wild pharmacy growing around you. 10 roots that grow wild, most of which probably grow in your area, some in lawns and yards, others in woods and fields, all containing medicinal compounds validated by traditional use and, in many cases, by modern research. Dandelion for liver support, burdock for blood purification, plantain for wounds and urinary health, yellow dock for skin and digestion, wild ginger used cautiously, valerian for sleep, echinacea for immune support, Solomon's seal for joints, marshmallow for mucous membranes, and poke with strong cautions about toxicity. The common thread is that these are free medicine, literally growing wild. Most people walk past them daily, or actively try to eliminate them, without realizing they're valuable. But accessing this free medicine requires knowledge. Correct identification is absolutely critical. Harvesting from clean areas matters. Understanding preparation methods ensures safety and effectiveness. This is not casual knowledge. Foraging wild plants for medicine requires study, attention to detail, and respect for the plants and the knowledge systems that preserved this information. These roots are powerful, that's why they work. But power means they can cause problems if misused. Pokeroot is actually toxic. Yellow dock contains oxalates. Valerian can cause drowsiness. Even safe plants can cause issues if misidentified or used inappropriately. Work with qualified herbalists if you're new to foraging. Take foraging classes, learn from experienced people, use multiple identification resources. When in doubt, don't harvest. But for people willing to learn properly, wild medicinal roots represent an incredible resource. Free medicine growing in backyards, woods, and wild places. Knowledge that connects us to thousands of years of human relationship with plants. The pharmaceutical industry cannot monetize this knowledge. They can try to synthesize compounds from plants, but they cannot patent dandelion or burdock growing wild. So this knowledge exists outside the medical industrial system, preserved by herbalists and wild crafters who still maintain connection to plant medicine. My hope is that this video inspires you to look at your yard and local wild areas differently, that you start seeing plants as potential allies rather than weeds to eliminate, that you learn to identify a few medicinal plants confidently and begin building relationship with the wild. Pharmacy growing around you, if you found this valuable, share it. Comment about which roots grow in your area or which you've used. Hit subscribe for more wild foraging and plant medicine content. Thanks for watching, take care of your health, learn your local plants, and never underestimate the medicine growing wild under your feet. Remember, start slowly, identify carefully, harvest sustainably, and use respectfully. These plants have sustained human health for millennia. They'll continue serving that role for people who take time to learn their ways.